Hungarian Folk Tales. The Princess's Shoes. Once upon a time, there lived a most beautiful princess who was lovelier than any maiden on earth. Prince after prince came to her father's palace. Princes from all over the world surrounded the lovely princess, telling her the sweetest things, but it was no use. It all went in one ear and out of the other. In fact, she laughed at them so loudly that the whole palace resounded to her laughter. There was one among the princes who caught the princess's eye, and she took a fancy to him, but he was none the wiser for it, as the merciless princess poked even more fun at him than she did at the others. As time went by, it happened one day that two fleas hopped into the princess's palm. Well, she was as quick as lightning and held them fast in her hand. She took the two fleas to a pot containing lard and put them in there so that they would grow big and fat. She was right indeed, and hardly a year had gone by when the two fleas had grown so huge that their hide was big enough to make a pair of shoes. The princess made up her mind. She summoned the butcher, had the fleas skinned, ordered the shoemaker to tan the hides and the bootmaker to make her a pair of fine boots. She had it announced far and wide that she would marry the man who could tell her what animal's hide her boots were made out of. The princes came flocking again from far-flung corners of the world. They were all fine young men in their prime. They lined up in the courtyard and started guessing what animal's hide the princess's shoes could be made out of. But none of them got it right. Then the princess had taken a liking to, dressed in a beggar's rags, and sneaked into the princess's bedchamber, where he hid in the night, hoping to hear what the princess would tell her maid about the boots. He could not have been more right. The princess had a good laugh at all the silly answers she had been hearing all day and said to her maid, "You'll see, nobody will ever know that my boots have been made out of flea skin." That was enough for the prince. The next day he mingled in his beggar's clothes among the princes, and when his turn came, he uttered, "Your Royal Highness, your boots are made out of flea skin." The princess went white as a sheet, shivered like a leaf, but did not wish to go back on her word, so she said, "You're right, beggar, so from this moment forth, I'm your wedded wife, till death do us part." "All right, my lovely young wife, but take off your nice silk clothes and put on beggar's rags. Then we'll make a perfect match." The haughty princess donned a beggar woman's clothes and accompanied her husband to a dirty little hut on the outskirts of the village. As if all that had not been enough, she even had to beg with her husband day in, day out. On top of it all, she even had to make a fire and cook dinner for her husband as best she could with what little she had. To make matters worse, a farm labourer came and shouted to her in a loud voice, "Hey you, beggar woman, go at once to hoe the land on the prince's estate." What else could the poor princess do? She went off as she had been ordered, shedding many a tear on the way. Her husband then made straight for the palace. There he donned his bright royal clothes and walked out among the labourers. It was his fields that the beggar woman had been sent to. The prince kept on encouraging and praising the labourers, but scolded and humiliated his wife, saying that he had never seen such a bad farmhand, although the poor woman was sweating with the effort she was making. Dinner time came, all the labourers were seated at a big table, and silver cutlery was put next to the plate of each. The prince still had not had enough. He wanted his haughty wife never to forget the experience, so he told another woman labourer to slip a silver spoon into the beggar woman's pocket. There was a lot of toing and froing after dinner when the servants found a silver spoon was missing. They went through the pockets of all the labourers and found the silver spoon in the beggar woman's pocket. In vain did she swear that she had not stolen it. She was put in a dungeon. By this time, the lesson had been enough. Hardly had the door of the dungeon been locked than the prince had it opened again and walked in to his young wife. There he gently took her by the hand, led her up to the palace and said to her, "All right, your crying days are over. Put on your nice silk clothes again. I've put on mine too, for I was the beggar you married. Do you see now, my dear?" Well, to cut a long story short, they made up and started a new life together that was a joy to see for everyone. I saw it. Make sure you do too. Hungarian Folk Tales. 7 at one blow. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there lived a tanner. Now this tanner had as many children as a sieve has holes, and even more. One day he was cooking porridge for his children. There was just enough for each to have a drop. It was hot, it was summertime, and a swarm of flies flew in through the window. And this sent the tanner into such a rage that he lifted his hand and brought it down hard on the table. He managed to get 7 of the flies at one and the same time. So he thought to himself, "Am I not a true and gallant knight to hit 7 at one blow?" He made for himself a sign, and on it he wrote, "7 at one blow," and this he wore around his neck. Off he went to seek his way in the world, and eventually he came upon a well deep in the forest. So he lay himself down and slept. Just then came devils to sup from the water. One of these devils saw him and said, "Now this is a true and gallant knight. He's not a man to battle with." No sooner had he said this than the tanner woke up, and then the devil said, "Will you not come and serve us true? Your job will be to carry water in this bison skin." With that they went off to where the devils lived, in the infernal fire or somewhere deep in hell. And the devils drank the water up in a flash. So then the king of the devils said, "What wages do you require?" "A load of gold carried home, and I will ride on top of it." And so the bargain was struck. They passed the man the bison skin. The poor man almost collapsed under the weight of it. He set out for the well. He wondered how he was going to be able to carry it back full when he could hardly manage to carry it when it was empty. So he got hold of a spade, and when he arrived, he started to dig around the well. Now the devils got fed up of waiting for him to come back with the water, so one of them upped and went off after him. Said the devil, "What are you doing, tanner? I'm not going to come here back and forth and fetch water for you all the time. I'm going to bring the whole well in one go." "No, don't do that. You see, my mother is blind and she's going to fall into the hole. I'll fetch the water for you. You fetch wood from the forest instead." And with this, they started off back. Then the devil led him to the forest, to show him how much wood he had to gather up and bring back. The devil took the top of a tree and bent it down, and the tanner held on to it. Then the branch came loose from the devil's hand, and as the tree sprang back, it threw the tanner up and over the forest. Out sprang a rabbit from under the bush, and the tanner chased it. Asked the devil, "Now where are you running?" "After this rabbit, don't you see? I jumped across the forest for it, and I still couldn't catch it." Then the devil ran home and told the others, "Get rid of this tanner, because he's a bigger devil than any of us." The tanner said he wouldn't go away because there was a devil here stronger than him, and he pointed at one of the devils, saying he was the stronger one. And the devil said, "I'm stronger than you. Come with me to the top of the hill. We'll take a whip with us and make it crack. Whoever makes the whip crack louder is surely the stronger of us too." The tanner said, "I don't mind, but give me a club as well." When they got there, the devil said, "You go first at cracking the whip." "And no," said the tanner, "you go first." The devil took the whip and cracked it so hard that the tanner went and fell over. "I wanted to hold the end of the whip, but you were too fast for me." "Now then," said the devil, "it's really your go." "Well, if it's my go, close your eyes, because when I do it, you'll go blind." The devil closed his eyes, and the tanner smacked him right on the head with the club. Then he asked, "Now who can crack the whip harder?" And the devil said, "You can crack it harder. You're a bigger devil than all of us." So they went back, and the devil said to the rest of them, "Take this tanner home right away." So they put the money into a big tub, and he sat on top of it. When he got home, his children came out and said, "Father, Father, how long is it since we last had the meat of a devil?" The devil emptied the tub, money, tanner and all, and ran off back to hell. "It's a good thing that we got rid of him," he told the other devils. "Even his children want to eat the meat of a devil." And that was the full of the story, from its head all the way to its tail. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Round Stone. Once upon a time, there lived a poor man. He had many, many children. Off he would go to catch a fish for the table, for they were very poor and had to eat. His wife would cook these fish for all the children. That's what they had to live on. Now, not far away from there lived his brother and his family, and very rich he was too. But he never helped his brother out. When there wasn't a bite to eat in the poor man's house, he would send to his brother, in the name of God, to let him have enough flour to make supper for the children. But he never got any. Once, when there was hardly a scrap to eat for a whole week, the poor fisherman said to his wife he was off to fish and he wouldn't come back until his satchel was full. He sat down on the bank early in the morning. No matter where he cast his net, there was nothing in it when he drew it in, not even a fish as big as my little finger. Now dusk was on him and still no fish. The poor man grew very angry. Well then, he thought, that's it. I'll cast the net one more time, and no matter what, I'll go home. When he pulled it out, well, it was as heavy as could be. Now then, said he to himself, there must be a huge fish in it. Indeed, he could hardly pull the net out of the water. Out it came, and what was in it but a great, big, round stone. Ah, well, said he, I'll take it home anyway. At least the children at home will be able to play with it. And home he took it. His children were still awake. They looked at the great big round stone and started to play with it. They couldn't go to bed. They were having such fun with the game. They rolled it up and rolled it down the room and screamed with delight because the stone was getting brighter and brighter. Look, wife dear, this is some kind of wonder of a stone. It's shining like a diamond. Dear heart, said she, it's a diamond for sure. So they quickly decided that she should go next day to show the stone to the king himself, to see if he wanted to buy it for a lot of money. Up she rose at the dawning of day, wrapped the stone in a kerchief, and set off to see the king. First she saluted the king in the proper way. She took out the stone and showed it to him. Now, where did you find that, my poor good woman? Said the king, and was astonished. She told him that her husband had found it in the water. Then, my poor good woman, let me have it, and I'll give you 1,000 florins for it. Because he knew that it was a real diamond. The poor woman did not say a word. She just gave a little cough. Well, if 1,000 isn't enough, I'll give you 2,000. And the poor woman coughed again, and was so confused that not a word could she speak. But the king thought she wanted more. Listen then, my poor good woman, would you think 3 sacks of gold would be enough for the stone? This time she didn't cough. She just nodded her head. Straight away the king filled 3 sacks with gold and even gave her a cart and a horse so that she could go home. Well, didn't she go home in great happiness? Or wasn't there great happiness at home too? Never again would they go hungry. Well then, dear wife, said the poor fisherman, we should weigh the gold to see how much we have. Right you are, said she. Now there wasn't a weight in the house. One of the boys went to see the rich uncle. What would you be wanting a weight for? Asked the rich relation mockingly. My father wants to weigh some money, said the boy. Well, the rich relative had a great laugh at this. Here you are, son. Here's the weight. And I'll come too, for this is something I have to see. Your father weighing money. So the rich relation stood, and all he could do was open his mouth and his eyes wide in amazement. Not even he had ever seen as much money all at once. Where did you get all that gold from? The fisherman thought to himself, I'll have a little joke here. The king gave it to me in return for 3 cats. How could that be? Asked the rich relation. Well, the fact is, brother, the king's palace is knee-deep in mice. So many that the king and the royal family cannot even eat their lunch or their supper. I heard of this, and while I was coming and going, I got 3 cats and brought them with me as a present for the king. It was as if I'd been given a reprieve, so delighted was the king, and he straight away gave me 3 sacks of gold for the 3 cats. The rich relation heard this and couldn't wait to get started. Well, up he went and called everywhere in the villages around them, and he bought every cat there was for a right handful of money. He packed them all into his cart, and off he went to the king. What have you come here for? Asked the king. Your Majesty, I heard that you were in great need of cats, so that's what I've brought you. You mean in that sack there's nothing but cats? Let me see. The rich relation opened the sack. There were cats jumping all over the place. Cats to the right, cats to the left, cats everywhere. And you know what cats are like? They ripped and tore at everything. Dear heavens, what is going on here? Many cats, that's what. The king had him seized for playing such a trick on him. He threw him into prison, and for all I know, he's still in there, if he hasn't been set free, for catting the king.